everyone, and welcome to the What's Your Everest podcast. My name is Liam Hubbard. I'm an intern here at Everest Strong Coaching, and today I'm co hosting with Dr. Carla Steingraber, who is the head of Everest Strong Coaching. She is a licensed clinical and sports psychologist who's been in practice for nearly 20 years now, and she's a certified mental game coach who works with athletes of all ages, skill levels, and sports to help improve their mental game. And we are thrilled to welcome our guest today, Marigale Walsh, who is a professional health coach and fitness nutrition specialist. She is also a certified whole food plant-based chef and works with a variety of clients, from athletes, high achievers in the C-suite, to individuals looking to improve their well-being. And she has a specific focus on condition management, which involves helping clients prevent and reverse chronic lifestyle impairments related to nutrition, sleep, movement, and daily habits. And a defining aspect of Marigale's work is that she combines Western and Eastern philosophies in her approach to working with clients. And we're really looking forward to getting to learn more about her expertise today. So, Marigale, thank you so much for joining us.
Well,
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
thank you for having me. It's great to be here. Thank you.
Well, Marigale, you have worked with clients managing chronic health conditions. How does that experience translate to optimizing performance for athletes?
Yeah, thank you, Carla. So, as we know, the same issues that break down chronic health on the side are the same things that actually build up athletes' performance. For example, when somebody is sick and they have high insulin resistance, that means that their body is not metabolizing flexibility. They don't have the ability to switch between their fuel sources, and their whole performance actually goes down. So when we look at how we can actually drive high athletes' performance, we can say, how can we balance that whole glucose pathway? How can we balance all of those fuel sources so that at any given point, the brain, the body, the glycogen, the glycose, the stores, the sugar, everything that you're using to be your best as an athlete are not being depleted. We're going to get a lot more into that. And so much so about what is this, what I call is the super highway between your gut and your brain, which is the vagus nerve. Many of us have learned
Mm.
it when we were in school, but basically it's that communicator between your brain and your gut. And you're going to hear me say it all over again, it's all connected. If your brain isn't functioning well, your gut isn't performing well, that means your performance is impacted. So it's really all connected. And chronic disease over time means that you have not been paying attention to those symptoms, those signals in your body. And so over time, it doesn't become acute, then inflammation becomes chronic, and then other disease states begin to happen.
Now, we talk all the time about how proper nutrition has a big impact on physical output, right? If you don't have enough nutrition, your body just can't perform. But how does it impact focus, the stress response, mood, and even mindset as you approach challenging athletic endeavors?
Oh, absolutely. And again, that it's all connected, right? So the brain, we know that the brain utilizes, it's a big expenditure of our energy. Between 20 and 25% of our energy, right, is utilized through our brain. And when our blood sugar is low, we have a really hard time with our decision making, and then we go into impulse control. So then all of a sudden you're reacting to everything, and you're not actually on the edge of being your best performance. So even mild dehydration, right, can actually hurt our overall working memory by 30 to 40%. I'm sure, Carla, you
Oh,
see
wow.
that,
Mm.
with your patients all the time, right? When they come in and they're even a 2% dehydration level can totally affect your brain's performance and your ability to actually think. It goes to a different part of your brain. Overall, from your stress, it depletes really all the key micronutrients. We're going to get into that a little bit more later. But the idea is that when we're only focused on those macronutrients of protein, fat, and carbs, we're actually, if we don't focus on those other areas of micronutrients, that mean like magnesium and zinc and B6, we're not getting that nutrient to our brain. So we're actually performing as undernourished, not only within our cells, but within our brain's ability. to react to that. So now all of a sudden, again, we're reacting a lot more. Our cortisol, right? That blood glucose in your body is also triggering a lot of other reactive areas. You're starting to get shallow breath. So if you have shallow breath, that means you're not putting enough oxygen into your cells, which means you're not going to be performing at your best either. So that also affects your ability to perform. Forget about mindset. I mean, 90% of our serotonin, right, is produced in our gut. That's that good feel transmitter that is the signal to the nerve cells.
Oh yeah.
And if you're inflamed, for example, from eating ultra processed foods, what I call fake food, I don't even think the word food should be put with those because they're made in a lab. But we can talk about that further. But I mean, what that really does is when you see athletes and you see high performers and you see C-suite executives and you see your mom and you see your dad, now there's increased anxiety because you just don't have the fuel. So your body is literally running on fumes. Our body's not a car, so we don't compare it to that. It's a much bigger ecosystem than that.
Yeah.
But it really begins to deplete the ability for our body to actually perform. So now we're reacting. So now we have anxiety, right, which is fear of the unknown about what's going to come. We can get really irritable. I don't know about you. If somebody said like the word hangry, right? You're hungry
Yeah.
and angry.
Mm.
You just become irritable. Even the littlest things, can really make a difference. Also, another big piece is apathy. You just don't
Mm.
have that internal motivation because the sources that you're pulling from are so just depleted. So, and then you still have to go out and perform, right? So imagine how incredible proper nutrition is when you get it to the level of the performance that you need. How high is high for that athlete, right? So the idea is that if you can upgrade your nutrition, you can then show up and be your very best, to focus on what you
You
need
know,
to.
I will say I would have to assume that with young athletes that this is a huge factor. I mean, obviously, the younger we are, the more insult to our body we can tolerate and feel like we've recovered from. But parents are taking their kids through drive-throughs because they're going from one athletic event to another, and these 10-year-olds, 15-year-olds, they probably feel just fine. But they might not be performing at their best. They might be performing a lot better if they were better nourished. Um, in high school, they start to think about it a little bit, but still, I don't know that they're really learning a whole lot more than get enough protein. So, say a little bit of something about what are athletes so often overlooking beyond getting enough protein. And maybe in college they start counting macros, but I'm not sure that they really are.
Yeah. In our society, right, in the Western culture, we tend to get very myopic and focused on one thing. In the 70s and 80s, it was low fat, low carb, right? And we know what that did to all of us. Now, protein is the thing that everyone's talking about. So, anytime the pendulum swings too far either way, something else is going to have to give. And so they're not probably conscientiously thinking about it, but because you hear, I mean, they're putting protein now on potato chips. Like that's going to make that fake food better.
Right.
I mean, just because the word protein is on there, I mean, that's just a whole marketing thing that, it makes me crazy because that's who they're marketing to are to young adults, right? Because they want that quick energy. Now, that will give you quick energy, there's no question, but it's also going to give you a quick crash. And it's not going to you're not going to get to the point that you really know how good you can be with all of that. When we focus on macros like that, when it's coming in college and someone's saying, hey, let's go to the gym, let's, pump it up and make it happen. When they're so focused on protein, but not the other issues, and they're getting it through protein powders, right? Because they
Mm.
want to get their protein numbers in through the day. Your body doesn't absorb any of that to the level that it needs when you don't have those other cofactors of what we call micronutrients like B, like all vitamin B, right? That's all you all need that for energy and production. If you're not getting your magnesium, that's going to affect your sleep and your neurosystem, later on in the day. Zinc for recovery. If you're not getting that through your vegetables and your fruits and your other food sources, you're like, how come I can't fall asleep? How
Mhm.
come I can't wake up? And I'm tired. Forget about D and K-12. I mean, if you don't have that, we know that most Americans and everybody in the Western hemisphere is also vitamin D deprived. We're not getting the same ozone layer that our grandparents did. So, and in vitamin D and in magnesium, if you're low in magnesium, you're going to have an ability also to affect your sleep. And the fact of the matter is, if you're depleted in magnesium, that affects 300 other enzymatic processes. So imagine downstream what else that is affecting, right?
Mhm.
And so when you just focus on the one thing, I'm going to go and do all my protein and all of that, there are a lot of other pieces that you're missing. And so that's why we have a whole complete ecosystem of protein, fat, and carbs. They're all there for a reason. And we just have to know, timing is important. When you eat of that, we can talk about that. But there's the ability to be able to say, when should I nourish myself so that I can focus and be the best, not only to have a strong, resilient body, but that my body composition is truly the best for me and not how I want to show up in the gym to the person next to me. Because no matter what, that's a snapshot in time of how both of you look at that day. What you don't know is what you're doing, and you're laying the groundwork for future, right? And what's going to happen. We don't think about that when we're young, but what we do in our teens shows up in our 20s. What we do in our 20s shows up in our
Yeah.
30s. And by then, you're already causing issues that someone says, all of a sudden, I need a knee replacement when they're 40 because they weren't listening to the signals and the symptoms the body was giving them when they had a knee injury when they were 18, right?
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
hadn't paid
Yeah.
attention to it. So it's starting to bring more intentionality into just the day to day of why you're making those choices.
Well, so obviously nutrition impacts sleep and quality of sleep, but how do the two interact in supporting recovery and resilience?
Yeah, for sure. When we don't build muscle or mental strength in the gym, we build it in recovery, right? That's
Mm.
what muscle and strength building is to tear that muscle down so it can build up. But the growth hormone only happens while we sleep. So if we're also sleep deprived, right, the majority of young adults get less than 6 hours of sleep. And if they're lucky, if they get 6 hours of sleep, that means that you're going to have a 30 to 40% lower and slower reactive time the next day, no matter what you do. And so if you're not spending time on recovery as much as you're spending on time on your strength, your growth hormone is going to be affected because that's only released in sleep. Your memory and reactive time is going to go down. Your cortisol is going to continue to rise, and forget about what it does to your immune system, right? Those are basically the four things that affect that. But what else is happening now in society? You talk about drive-through earlier. Are all of these cold brew coffees, these
Oh,
cold brew caffeines, these energy drinks, these monster drinks, anything that you want to put behind all of that Red Bull, whatever the case is, it's going to give you an energy spike. There's no question about it. But when you are overstimulating your adrenals and your nervous system, now you're also getting edgy, but not the edge that you're going to do to actually lead performance. You're going to again start to get that reaction time, and now everything is kind of off kilter. So there's lots of other things that are happening for nutrition and sleep that are affecting recovery and resilience just with our day-to-day
hmm.
activities that we don't even realize are affecting us long term.
Mm.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And another area within eating that I'm really curious about is, something that people, whether you're an athlete or non-athlete, run into a lot is there can be kind of this mental wear and tear of eating well, when you see all these drive-throughs, when you see these really appealing processed sweets, and it can be really challenging to stick to that healthy diet in the way our society operates. So, what would a mentally resilient meal plan look like?
Yeah, so one that actually stabilizes your mood, right? Something that when you eat your food, you actually have a more sharpened focus. Something that you can actually look at throughout the day and balance how that's going to affect. So what I usually tell high performers, athletes, C-suite executives, whoever is looking for their elite performance, start in the morning with protein and fat.
Hmm.
Front load your day with protein and fat in the morning because it gives a signal to your brain and your cells of what else is coming for the rest of the day. And what it does, it also prevents a late day crash. So, you hear about people that say, oh my gosh, at 3 or 3:30 in the afternoon, I'm so tired. Well, how have you set yourself up to actually fuel your brain, fuel your muscles, right? Fat does not make us fat. When we're talking about the good fat, right? The avocados, and the good fat we're talking about. Fat does not make you fat. It fuels your brain. Without fat, your brain does not perform.
Mm.
Protein is there for your muscles. That's the only thing that protein does, is it gets there for your muscles. And carbs have been villainized because they're
Mhm.
like, oh, carbs are going to make you fat. When you eat complex carbs, not refined fake food carbs, but when you actually eat complex carbs, that actually restores the glycogen in your muscles that you have expended throughout the day, moving, going from one room to the other, going from school, going from your house outside into the car, into nature, without even talking about athletes. Forget about the glycogen stores. If you do not restore your glycogen stores with complex carbohydrates, which have an array of things that you need to restore that optimal blood glycogen level, you're going to crash. There's no question about it. So a lot of times I'll talk to people and say, how does your energy feel at 8, at 10, at 12, at 2, throughout the day, and even right before you go to sleep? Every single one of those is a clue to how your body is reacting and utilizing or not utilizing the fuel that you've given it throughout the day, right? Um, Also, anti-inflammatory foods would also be a really, great thing to be able to add to that. Fish, right?
Mm.
With all the omega-3s, you need that for your brain, but you also need that for anti-inflammatory. People that say, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm so bloated, or I feel heavy today. How come I feel so heavy when I worked out yesterday? I shouldn't feel this way. Well, you could be underhydrated, right? You don't have enough water in your system, that we talked about. You don't have, you maybe ate too much salt. When you go and you eat outside and into these fast food places, right? They're loaded with salt so that it
Mm.
tastes good. But now you've got all this salt in your system, and that means that you're going to retain water. So there's
Is
lots of.
that then, sorry to interrupt, but is that then different from the electrolytes that you might need for endurance sports?
Absolutely, very different, right? The endurance
Mm.
is the electrolytes are what, in the term electrolytes, there's energy within those that actually give you more fuel to continue to utilize whatever stores you still have left in you. So if you're sweating a lot, if you're exercising a lot, that takes a lot of brain power. It takes a lot of movement. It takes a lot of cellular energy, and electrolytes are what is needed when people are really low on their stores. You can tell right away when you start getting really fatigued. Your brain fog is really coming to fruition. Some people, have you noticed when athletes are performing, sometimes they don't even know where they are in the field or within their sport. They look like, where am
Mm.
I? And they look around. That just means the body's trying to figure out, and the first thing, right, is the brain that's going to try to figure out how to make that happen. So yeah, Carla, definitely have to have those sources of energy, depending upon your level, and only you know your body, right, and how that works. So you have to kind of test with those what that looks like. But
Mm.
on the opposite side, it's the same thing when you're skipping meals. That also, there's a whole thing about fasting, right? Oh, I'm going to do intermittent fasting. I'm going to do all that. You have to really know yourself and work with a professional to know, is that something that's going to work for you?
Mhm, mhm.
Especially in athletes, I wouldn't recommend that at all. I think that's really, really going down a slippery path. If they're looking to lose weight or whatever the case is, hit weight. I know wrestlers that skip meals,
Yeah.
because they have to make weight, tomorrow. Processed foods, any processed food is really not going to help you with your mental resilience. It's only going to clog it up because you're putting lab food products in your body. And now your body's saying, wait, what is all this fake stuff you're giving me? I have to go perform this game this afternoon. But what is all this stuff? I have to deal with that first just to keep you alive.
Mhm, mhm.
Body has one job. It has one job only, is to keep us alive.
Yeah.
And it's going to keep
Right.
us alive in a sick state, or it's going to keep us alive in a healthy state. But that's what
Right.
the body and the brain are always trying to figure out, how to get back to homeostasis. And the more that we put on it by not having the right fuel, the right cognitive approach, the right day-to-day fuel, the body's going to start to go into this weakened state. That's why you start to see, for some people, when depression kicks in, because they're depleting themselves for so long, right? Maybe Carla, you can talk about that a little bit. When maybe you've seen that in your patients, right? When they come in and they're not eating well, Does that
Mhm.
affect their performance?
Yeah, absolutely. What about with you being a plant-based chef? What kind of misconceptions do you see with athletes around plant-based nutrition? Because it's always a big debate, especially with the lifters or the boxers, et
That's right.
cetera.
Yeah. Well, they train like professionals, but they eat like influencers. I mean, that's what I always say. And they're not machines. We're not machines. And so the minute you focus like that to be that is when you really begin to lose your edge. Again, we talked about just focusing on the macros and missing out those micronutrients that whole downstream effect, those cofactors that make protein actually utilized are not being absorbed. Protein is for performance, right? Carbs, like we talked about, you need that for the glycogen. But the misconceptions are if you don't eat carbs, or I don't want to eat carbs, I don't want to get fat. That's going to affect your overall glycogen stores and your ability to perform. Fat, again, does not make us fat. It controls our hormones and our brain. So we need to have all of that. And the micronutrients build those tissues. You know, more is better in most of the case, but not when it comes to, like I said, coffee or caffeine, right? Or these things and these fake foods that you're doing for quick fixes. So that's not going to help at all either.
Mhm.
And and another thing to remember, a misconception is that supplements do not replace food.
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
People are like, oh, I just went and had it. I just went and had, a smoothie. I'm like, what did you put in your smoothie? Just,
Mhm.
curious. And they go to a place that has just nothing but sugar. You see
Oh,
added
yeah.
56. There are certain coffee chains that are out right now around the seasonal, and they make a pumpkin latte. And you
Mhm.
go in there, you're like, you may as well just have a Snickers bar or something. I mean, it's like 56 grams of added sugar. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah,
in
it's
one,
incredible.
it's
Mhm.
incredible, right? So, but you're
It's
looking at,
above
I
the
love
daily allowance, right?
yeah, yeah, but I love pumpkin. So, that's the first thing you see. It's Halloween, it's pumpkin, in America.
Right.
So yeah, so I think that's the important thing is again, really understanding what is it that you're actually eating? Are you eating food? Is it something that is not in a package? Any
Also,
food,
meal prep, right, is a big deal. What are some of those nutrient-rich plant-based foods that often get overlooked for an athlete's meal prep?
that's right. Yeah, and those plant-based foods, right, are what give us mental clarity, gut integrity, the things that actually kind of make it all work together. Things like hemp. You can
Mm,
put hemp seeds. They're just full of fiber. They're a complete protein, right? There's amino acids that we can only get through eating food and that our body needs. So when people say, oh my God, I'm so focused on protein, but maybe they're not getting a complete protein. So no matter what, they're actually fooling themselves that they're actually getting healthy, by not having that. Things like tiger nuts, right? Or okra, these things that we just don't necessarily think about to reach for, black cumin or nigella seeds, which are from some more Asian cultures, are incredible to sprinkle on top of yogurt, or berries or that kind of thing to give you like a really well balanced meal. Some amaranth or teff
mm,
instead of rice. Rice. If you're not, from Asia where you grew up on rice, our bodies don't metabolize it the same way. But things like amaranth or teff, which are a little bit more subtle to the gut, those can actually build up beautiful protein profiles within the body. As because people say, how can I get enough protein, through in my day? There's other ways to do it than just having a steak, or chicken, which for some people is also price prohibitive. So there's other
mm,
ways to do it.
right.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. And in terms of giving our listeners, some tangible steps of specific foods to go out and have after listening to this episode, what I know you mentioned that starting your day off with protein and carbs is really useful. What's an example of what that breakfast might look like? And also, are there any favorite meals or snacks you'd recommend for fueling right before or after training?
Sure, absolutely. Yep. So there is something to. Let me just respond first with there is something too about timing, right? And what that really comes down to, timing to your circadian rhythm or a biological rhythm, not meal timing. That's different. So when we wake up in the morning, we know that our body, right, is used up. everything. That's what the body is, in an anabolic state when we're sleeping. It's all into this repair. That's what we want it to do when we're sleeping. When we wake up in the morning, if we can get protein and fat as a start for the day, things like Greek yogurt, right? Which is, has incredible probiotics inside of it, right? Fermented food, which starts to line the gut and kind of just gets you ready for the day for whatever else is coming. And then you throw berries on top. You could do fresh berries, but there's also the myth that frozen berries aren't as good as fresh. Actually, there's scientific studies that show 6 months later, there's the same amount of nutrients in frozen as there is in fresh. So, there's ways that you can actually, like now, right? Berry season is just about done. You can go stock up now while it's cheaper, put those frozen berries in your freezer, and then you'll have them through the winter. So there's ways to eat seasonally without actually eating fresh, just something to keep in mind. But berries are incredible for polyphenols, for brain health, for cognitive delivery, for overall antioxidants within the body. So Greek yogurt, throw some berries on top of it. Some really good granola, or even some of that nigella or the black seeds that I talked about, as long as the granola does not have a lot of sugar. And for some people, it gives them that crunch that they like in the morning on top of their meal. If you have a little honey at home, it's fine to put that on top, at home. But that's a great stable way. And for some people, now we say, don't just have your powders by themselves because it's not going to absorb it as much. For some people, you can actually throw in a scoop of unflavored protein into your yogurt in the morning. You don't even taste it, but it's a way to get more protein, there. But go ahead and have a banana with that. Or, if you need a piece of sourdough toast on the side, if you need carbs, then to get, to start for your day. But try to start with carbs that are not, super heavy, but give you that balance that you don't want to walk away hungry. You want to have meals in the morning that through the day, when you're at school or you're at work, you don't want to think about that you're hungry in the morning. It shouldn't even be a thing. If you eat it at 7:30 in the morning, you should only start getting hungry around 11:30. If you also stay hydrated, right? There's the whole piece. Some people confuse hunger with hydration. So, I don't know how schools are today. Are they allowed to bring water bottles, into the classroom?
Depends on the classroom.
Exactly, right? So that's why things like watermelon, in season are incredible, very hydrating. You can have that with your breakfast, or an orange. So fruit also gives you hydration, for the morning. But if you're getting hungry and tired around 10 o'clock after your breakfast, that's a way to also listen to the signals to say, whatever I had within the balanced portfolio of food I gave myself that day, it wasn't enough of something. It's going to be different for everybody, but you shouldn't get hungry 2 hours after you eat.
Right.
And you don't recommend a Diet Coke at that point.
Exactly. Unless you're training for an ultra marathon or something. But ideally it should be 3.5 to 4 hours is the normal cycle to get hungry if you're eating a balanced meal. So that's why throughout history, breakfast, lunch, and dinner is kind of spaced out that way too, to be able to give that 3.5, 4, 5 hours. But again, water, if you can have water in between. I hate the word diet. I've always hated the word diet. It has the word die in it.
Yeah.
I just don't think that's fun. And it's not sustainable. Like, why would anyone diet? Food is meant to be enjoyed. And let me preface that with saying real whole food is meant to be enjoyed. The reason that we get so hungry and we crash is when we eat all this fake food. Again, there's no nutrients going to our brain and our body. It's just filler food.
Yeah.
It's made to be addictive. So when people sit down and they have a bag of chips watching TV, they just eat it. They're not even paying attention. It's just a habit. It's a filler. They don't even know what they're doing. When you actually sit down, if you're going to have chips, then if you're going to, no food's off limit. Let me just put it that way. Eat what you want to eat. But no, there's going to be, downstream effects. But take it, put it into a bowl, and then know when you sit down in front of the TV, say to your brain, I'm going to eat this bowl of chips. It's a signal to your brain that you're doing something, and the body will respond very differently than nonchalantly just eating whatever. The second thing, and I know I'm going off a little bit on this, but the other piece about how to start out a day is actually chew your food. It sounds crazy, but have you been around people that say, "Oh my God, I'm so hungry," and then they inhale their food?
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
literally take
Mhm.
2 bites of a sandwich and down, down. It takes so much for your body to digest chunks of a sandwich that you've just eaten to go through your body. So now your body's working on this grinding system to try to get the digestion in. You're also putting a lot more air into your body. So
Hmm.
you're also all this other oxygen is there. And now this like thing is just grinding, grinding, grinding. Your brain hasn't even caught up to the fact that you're eating because you're inhaling. It takes about 15 minutes for that response to kind of happen in the brain. So if we can all just slow down a little bit, intentionally eat the food in front of us. There's also science that says if you sit down and eat a meal, it gives a different signal to your brain than standing up and eating,
Hmm.
Oh yeah. Mhm.
right? So even just sitting down, saying, "This is the meal that I prepared for my day to be my very best," and you look at it because where does digestion start? In our eyes.
Hmm.
Mm.
So if you look down and if it's full of colors and it's full of all actual real food, now your body's like, "Oh, I'm going to get it today. This is going to be a great day because look how I'm starting my breakfast." And you're setting yourself
Mhm.
up for success. So
So
it's
you're really referencing the mindfulness piece, not just in how you prepare the food, what food you're choosing, but also being creative in terms of the color variation of the food, making sure you're getting enough foods that are nutrient dense and not just essentially tasty cardboard. But you're also talking about how we eat in that moment, if it is, even if it is going to be chips, like
yeah.
using mindfulness in that process. What about in recovery?
Yeah, so the recovery is listening again to those signals and reflecting first on what you just expended. Are you upset because you lost the game? Are you upset because you didn't play in the game? Are you upset because you didn't show up like you thought you would? Did you get an injury? Did you not perform at your best because you didn't like the grade you got on your test, or somebody cut you off in traffic? Right? Whatever these other impacts were for you is going to affect your recovery, because your recovery, your brain is already and your body is reacting to what you just played and how you just played the game. And so now are you just, "Oh my God, I'm starving. I forgot to eat lunch. And now I have to go play a game, but all I had was breakfast, and breakfast was 9 hours ago. And then I haven't had enough that." So in recovery, it's first of all paying attention to where you just came from and how you just performed. Not beating yourself up. That's not going to help anybody, but it's reflecting on, did I show up as my best? And in that
Mm.
recovery, can I say, what's going to help me now begin to calm my system? Begin to give me the fuel that I need just to be in this moment and get myself set up for the next part of the day. And so that's going to be different for everybody. And again, what did you do prior to that throughout the day? If you haven't had enough carbs and it's 9 hours later and you just played a game, probably a good idea to go get some complex carbs, because you're going to
Mm.
crash from just, there's no energy, there's nothing left in the tank, right? So that's the time to actually have carbs, is after you've worked out that much. Fat is going to help with your brain. Again, fat does not help you. Fat, that's going to start to regulate your nervous system too. So if you can have carbs with fat and then protein, but you want to make that a balanced meal and not just have only one thing or the other. Like every meal, the more you can actually put those major macros together, which is protein, carbs, and fat, but those micronutrients I talked about, which are those colorful fruits and vegetables, start to put some leafy greens in there, right? Those are your chlorophyll and all of the things that you need. Start to have color on your plate afterwards, because all those different colors also have all different properties in the body. So a balanced meal after recovery is great. Going to just have a protein bar after your workout is not going to help you, but you may need that at the moment so you don't crash. So again, you have to look at where your energy level is and really get to know your signals. If it's always the same after you work out or after you play, that's another symptom that right before that, throughout the day, you're not preparing your body the way that it needs to perform. So we start listening to your own self and not what everybody else is saying. Our best computer is ourself, and the best metabolic detective is ourself. If we only pay
Mhm,
attention,
mhm.
we just don't pay attention. We react too much because again, we're deprived of so many nutrients. I get passionate about that because I get super excited when I see somebody at their top level of performance. You're like, wow, this person is on all cylinders. They're locked in. Did they sleep? Did they eat? Are they a content person? Do they have healthy relationships? Do they have the ability to go within themselves and really drive out what they need to be their best? And then that's just baseline. Then they show up and they kill it. It's exciting, whatever the outcome is. Yeah, I get super excited about that.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
love that. And switching gears a little bit more towards your, distinctive experiences that shape how you approach your work. A really interesting piece is your international influence. And since you've lived internationally for over 15 years,
Yeah.
how have global food traditions, shaped your views on athlete nutrition?
Yeah, huge. Huge that it's really a benefit of going to another country and being in the environment of what's purposeful for them. And throughout much of the world, most of the time I've lived in Europe. I lived over 12 years in Italy, and that that's all the Mediterranean diet that you hear about. So that's where I was introduced to olive oil, as a healthy fat every day, having that piece of it, and actually eating a lot of fish. It was northern Italy, so having a lot of fish and a lot of fruits and vegetables. I don't remember ever buying anything in a package there because the refrigerators there are my refrigerator was so small that
Mhm.
you just had to go every day just to get your food because you couldn't fill up a refrigerator. It was just like a college refrigerator.
Right, right.
So you just had to kind of go to the butcher, the baker. I didn't go to the candlestick maker, but I went to I went to the wherever I had to do every day to get what I needed, and so everything is just super fresh. Another time when I lived in Amsterdam, I had 76 stairs up to my apartment and I rode my bike for 4 years. So I saw what logistics was just to get around and to move. I didn't even need to go to a gym because even just carrying anything up my stairs every day, my arms have never been stronger when I lived there. But in the Netherlands and in that part of Europe, in Amsterdam alone, they stopped counting, but there were over 145 different nationalities within that small city of only 850,000 people. So I literally, when I could go to different restaurants that were all fresh and see what Ethiopian food was. I could see Indian food. I could see, what the difference are, Russian food that was there. And all of it, everything was fresh. It was whole. I also didn't buy anything in a package for 4 years.
Right.
So it really made a difference on eating seasonally and locally and fresh. And that doesn't mean it has to be expensive. Again, you can get, complex grains you can make for meal prep on a Sunday and a Wednesday and it will last you, right? And
Yeah.
it's a cup. All you need is a cup to a third at every meal. So, you can amateurize that out throughout the week and it's really not expensive to eat. That's a misnomer. Another misconception is that eating healthy is expensive.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's not, right? You go to certain fast food restaurants and pay for a hamburger, fries, and a Coke, and you pay now $12 for that.
Right, yeah.
And
Yeah, and you'll pay for it again down the road, right?
right, right. There's zero. I mean, I get convenience, I get life. You have to do certain things along the way. And one meal like that is not going to kill you. If that becomes your mainstay, probably wouldn't
Mhm.
recommend it. But I also know life. So that's where if you can, again, intentionally look at your meal prep or even thinking about what actual food do I have in my house,
Mhm.
it makes a huge difference. And then all the additives. We won't go into any of that, but look in your pantry, for example, and say how much of this is actually real food,
Mm.
and then look on the back of the package at the ingredients to start to educate ourselves on if you don't know what those ingredients are, you probably shouldn't be eating it.
I really like that rule of thumb. Yeah.
Right? It's hard. It's a hard switch to make that because you just grab and go. But again,
Yeah.
it's not intentional, but it's fast. But
Right.
when you actually take all of that out and look at it, those are all of those things that I talked about for later is going to create disease. you're already starting to do that with all of these things now. So the sooner you
Yeah.
can do it, I wish I learned this when I was younger, but the sooner you can do it, the better you're setting yourself up for success in performance and in life.
Right.
Yeah, are there in that sense then sort of wellness food practices from other cultures that Western athletes could really benefit from?
Yeah. So I'm a big believer in color.
Mm,
So all other cultures, Eastern cultures, when you look at what is on their plate, it is color and they eat seasonally. So if athletes can start to have a wider group of colorful food on their plate, all of those give very different inputs to your cells. So there's something called eat the rainbow. Some people just go and say, I have to get my green vegetables. I have to get celery and cucumber, and that's what I'm going to have in spinach. But that's green, which is great. That is going to give you your chlorophyll and your polyphenols, which is great. But then there's this all other reds and yellows and purples, I mean, and blues. And if you can start to add that, your body's going to start to say, wow, look at, I got this yellow one today, I got this blue one today. And all these other Eastern cultures all use color.
mm,
And they also eat the other thing, not only what's on their plate, but who they're eating with. Community is a big piece of Eastern and other cultures, is that most of that does not live, do not eat alone.
right.
Mhm.
Isolation is a big piece of overall health. And if you're not within a community or a family or a support system, that can directly affect your health as well. So I would say not only what's on their plate, but who's around their plate makes a very
Mm.
big difference in how they live a healthy lifestyle.
It's a big point because a lot of athletes, unless you're on a football team, you eat alone.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
really good point.
Yeah. I mean, look at everything since COVID, right? When COVID was happening, how many people were isolated and they were starting to feel, depressed and anxious
Yeah.
and
Right.
sad. Again, real food, whole food is meant to be joyous. It's meant to be used as fuel. It's meant to be celebrated. And that's why, again, when digestion starts in our eyes, it actually gets the color. One thing that I've shared with people to help them start to get on that path is look at nature. So right now we're in the Midwest, and fall is beginning, even though our temperature is more like summer. The trees are beginning to tell us some stories, right?
Mm,
With the colors of the leaves that are changing, those are the colors you should add more on our plate at that time.
that's
So
so
as
interesting.
as the leaves are changing orange into yellow into reds and then to dark reds, go to the store or your farmer's market and kind of pick those same colors. Now you're starting to eat also more in harmony with nature. It's nature signals. In the middle of the summer, when you see flowers and colors everywhere, that is truly eating all the rainbow when everything is super fresh and available and have all those
Mhm.
colors. So it's a way to be also in harmony with nature without sounding woo woo, but it actually does make a difference when you're eating in harmony with nature. It really does make a huge difference.
That's a fascinating connection.
Yeah.
And it's fun. Like it's super fun to try to like I was looking outside earlier this morning. There's a tree across from me, and it's starting to get already deep burgundy. I can't wait to go to the store to get deep burgundy tonight
Mhm.
Mhm.
for my meal because it's like it's already here.
Yeah.
Super exciting. Yeah. So something to think
So
about. Instead of just
give
going
us
habits.
give us a quick tip for a meal to boost focus.
Focus. Well, focus has to always include fat. So because that's our brain, right? And fat is a fuel for the brain. So let's see. Oh, one that I absolutely love that is complex carbohydrate, full of color, full of fat and carbs, but is absolutely amazing. Is you can take a sweet potato
Mm,
Mm.
and you can microwave it or bake it however you want. Cut it in half, kind of mix it up a little bit so it's a little mashed, or even plain how it is. Put yogurt on top of it or cottage cheese. So you don't need sour cream, yogurt or cottage cheese on top. Throw sliced avocado on top of that. And then pumpkin seeds. Pumpkin seeds, from
interesting.
a plant based perspective, is one of the most nutrient dense plant based food. So if you put pumpkin seeds on top, or pepinos is called in some nature. You put that on top. And then again, if you want to drizzle some honey or something on top, there's not a ton of protein in that, but there's protein in the yogurt. So you've got that from the yogurt or the cottage cheese, but it is a completely well balanced meal that's going to give you such clarity. It's going to keep you satiated for hours. It is so fun to eat that
Hmm. Yeah.
when you get to the end of eating that, you wish there was more. I mean, that's how good it is. So I would highly recommend that. And it's just
Nice.
great to look at, and what it does for inside of your body is insane. There was a point, just FYI, I was eating so many sweet potatoes that from the carotene that I was actually turning orange. My skin was turning
Oh my
orange. I'm like,
gosh.
okay, I
Yeah.
think I need to back off on this a little bit. So too much of a good thing is also not
Yeah.
good.
And
That's right.
kind of a similar question. What is one food you wish that more athletes ate?
Okay, so can I say two?
Yes.
Okay, one is watercress. It's
Mm,
one of those vegetables that people forget unless you grew up with it, but it's full of nitric oxide
Mm.
that
mm.
actually opens up your cells for just like bring it on. It's going to be a great day. So love watercress, and it's good. You just have to kind of get used to the flavor if you didn't grow up with it, but it's really really good. And the other one I absolutely love is to sprinkle on top are broccoli sprouts.
Oh yeah. Hmm.
Broccoli
Yeah.
sprouts have sulforaphane, which is this incredible also nitric booster that can actually, once you start to get used to it, it's going to help with your VO2 max. It's going to help with your overall oxygen performance, like that intracellular fuel that we don't always get from food. So if athletes could eat more watercress and broccoli sprouts, I would be singing on top of the mountain. I think it would really help with their oxygen, yeah, and their ability to actually process what they're going through.
Yeah.
Well, on the note of you singing from the top of the mountain, what is your Everest, Marigale?
My Everest. That's a good question. Well, actually, I just signed up for one
Oh, really? What's
because
that
of
one?
Carla. Um,
Really?
yes, I put my name into a lottery to run the marathon in Berlin next year.
No way.
Yes, awesome. Good for
I did.
you. Good for you.
I
Hopefully
did.
we both get in. Yeah.
I
I
did.
put my name into.
I've only run two half marathons, and but I've never wanted, and I've run those by myself. But because I love community so much, I'm like, I want to run a marathon with somebody. And Carol's
Oh,
like,
that'd be fun. Yeah.
what
That.
about Berlin? So I signed up for it. I'm like, and as I'm doing it, I'm like, what am I doing? But that's what I'm going to, and actually I'm starting training on October 9th because I'm going to give
Good.
myself a year for it.
All right, good for you. Yeah, that marathon is in September, so hopefully we both get in, and then we can train together and run it together. That'd be great, and I'll
Yeah.
take all my nutrition advice from you.
Well, you
But
inspired
I'm
me.
not giving up coffee. I just want you to know that won't
No,
be
me
happening.
neither. Me neither. Do not give up coffee. There are so many benefits, scientific benefits that they're finding with coffee. I don't think I could ever give it up either. I did for 3 years and I hated it, so I'm back
Yeah,
on it. Yeah. But black
there you
coffee,
go.
only black coffee.
Black coffee,
Yeah.
right?
Yep. So that's
Well,
what I'm.
any advice you would give to somebody who wants to kind of be where you are, who wants to be a nutritionist, a wellness professional?
Yeah. First of all, lean into health, whatever that means to you. For some people, it starts with fitness. Some people, it starts with being part of a team. For some people, it starts with, hey, I just went and played, a game with my cousin, and that was a great time. Lean into whatever piece of health works for you because there's a continuum of pillars of health, right? There's nutrition, there's sleep, there's exercise or movement, there's community, which is a very big piece of it. Maybe it just starts with a group meeting, putting together a meetup group with people that do things like you like to do that are around health, whatever that means. And then pay attention is also what I would say is just pay attention to how come no one ever told me this is what usually people say to me. How come no one told me what real food is? How come no one ever told me that I could actually get and be on the leading edge of the best part of my performance if I only slept, if I only did this? So lean into that and the path will show itself. Because I think when you see that again, I'm going to end with it's all connected. It is all connected. And, Carly, you have this beautiful piece about talking about the brain and what it does to all of us here. and then I bring in, what it does with our gut, and then it's connected. And then now here we are, three people talking together and reaching out to others. It's community, and that's really something to be grateful for. Is this temple that we're given? I think we just don't pay attention and be grateful for the body that we have, and how can we actually have everybody's different, but everybody can reach that top of that mountain, if they just lean into what their superpower is.
Right, and when there's this one clip of Arnold Schwarzenegger where some guy's telling him, "Okay, I'll start training Monday." He's like, "You don't start Monday, you start today." So
Exactly.
we often push things off, but really we should start today.
Without a question. Yeah. Oh, so now I have to go start my marathon today, is what you're saying. Okay, got it. I'm going to do it. Well, great. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah,
Yes, thanks for
Maribel,
joining us.
we
Yeah.
cannot thank you enough. This was so interesting, and I'm sure that our listeners are going to take so much away from this, and we really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me. I'm grateful to be here. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay, thanks.